Hey y'all, and good now, whenever and wherever this finds you. Welcome to today's episode of Pontification by TC. Today I have a special opportunity. My latest joy was to make snippets out of an interview that a radio station did with Jimmy Dore. And they had a Zoom of all four of them together. And so for me, it was to take snippets, and I had a really great time. And so I want to share some of those with you now. The snippets about how corporate media keep us separated and how important it is for us to come together to take back our power.
I want to ask you two really quickly, Jimmy, is that you're talking about, you're so great at identifying the flaws in the system. And I get caught up in this whole world of politics versus political theater. And even Ariel and I were laughing going back, looking at some of your history. And it's like that whole thing with Alex Jones when he crashed the Young Turks set at the Politicon, and you were there. This was many years ago. But I mean, to me, like the Alex Joneses of the world and some of these other organizations, it's really just about theater. And I was wondering, do you have hope for politics in general? Because this isn't just a duopoly problem. Is anybody doing it right in the world? Is there a way that we can govern ourselves where we can get these things, where we can really take care of the people? Or is it just going to be these who got over on whom, who's posturing on whom, the sound bites, the whole thing? It's all about drama, really.
So that's why we're in France right now. There's millions of people in the streets setting shit on fire and tearing it up because they're raising the retirement age from 62 to 64. And of course, they had to do it without a vote. Somehow they got it through Parliament without a vote, which sounds very undemocratic, right? So anyway, sounds like something Putin would do. Anyway, so in America, they don't even know that they raised the retirement age to 67. They don't even know it. People in America don't even, not only that they know it, they're out there protesting Bud Light. Like that's, and people feel passionate about it on both sides.
Yeah.
Yes, on both sides. So that's the joke of American culture. And why can they do that? Because that actually is what gets the clicks on and the views on MSNBC and CNN and Fox, and they get in Washington Post and New York Times, and they get you to hate half the country. And it's all, I'm into Jungian psychology, which is about unconscious projection of your own shadow onto your enemy, right? If you have a big emotional reaction negatively or positively to somebody, it's because you're most likely projecting the part of you that you repress onto that person. And so that happens it happens with cultures too. And that's how you get to go to war, because we project all your unconscious shadow onto Iraq or onto Libya or onto Russia. Now we're to hating Russians, everything bad in our unconscious, we project onto them. And so that's so right now, what we need to have happen is more things like happened on Staten Island, right? So the biggest thing that I ever got pushback on was when I interviewed a Boogaloo Boy on my show. Now, Boogaloo Boy is not a Proud Boy, right? But they want you to think they are. And so I was maligned as saying I'm platforming a racist, hate phobe, all this stuff. Well, they're the opposite. Boogaloo Boys were actually invented as a response against Proud Boys, and they were not racist. They were pro-Black Lives Matter, but they were anti-war, anti-cop, and they were also anti-Trump, right? And their message was, "I'm not your enemy," to people who were on the left. And so when I brought that guy on my show, I never got pushback like that in my whole career, because that's the only thing that will actually change things, is when the people who consider themselves on the left and the people who consider themselves on the right realize that they actually have more in common that the corporate media is telling them, and they actually share a common enemy, and that's the oligarchy, which is inflicting all this economic pain on them. Right now, we live in a culture, in a country, in an economy that corporations got tax breaks for shipping manufacturing jobs to China to get manufactured by slaves because it was cheaper to do it, right? And because they own the legislature to get those laws passed. So to undermine our own country and hollow out our own economic base, they got a tax break to do it. And now they want me to cheer on that somehow those people in China are bad and we should be in favor of a war with those people when we did it to ourselves, and you should hate half the country at the same time. And so that's what my whole thing is. If what happened on Staten Island with the Amazon union was a black guy went in there and he organized a bunch of Trump voters against the man because they realize they have a common interest and a common enemy. That's what we have to get done. And we have to realize that those truckers in Canada aren't Nazis and white supremacists. They're our brothers who learned how to take capitalism down to its knees. And that's why they had to call them white supremacists and Nazis, as they what we need to so that's what I'm using my show for, is to raise people consciousness about that. And we have to tell people that give up on the system, right? And the people like Bernie Sanders and AOC who serve nothing but the system, they are all war pigs. They all voted for a war they know is garbage and ridiculous. Before we give our own people health care or education or a living wage or clean water, we give $100 billion to corruption, and they did it. And so what they're inside a government to do, people like AOC and Bernie Sanders, is to keep people like us thinking that there's somebody inside the system fighting for us, and there isn't. And things aren't going to change until we realize we have to give up on the system, go outside the system like Christian Smalls in Staten Island did, and like the truckers in Canada did, before anything's going to get done. And that's why it's a bad idea to donate to Democrats or keep voting for Democrats. It's time to start voting third party and getting people in the street. So that's my message.
I just love Jimmy Dore and the way he talks with such passion and righteous indignation. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you down the road.